Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Adinulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Sankirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yuga Dharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karanavataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaurudaya Pushpavanto Chitro Sando Tuno Vandeham Sri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charanasako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki jai Shri Sri Gopal ki jai Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta ki jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai Gaur Premanande. So good evening everyone. We continue our reading, discussion from Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta. And in our last discussion we heard how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, in the context of giving a synopsis of the Adi Leela, moved from the esoteric reason for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's advent to the exoteric reason. So he came for two reasons, and inside of those are other developments, two basic reasons. Internal reason to explore and experience ultimately the love of Radha for himself, or from her perspective, and externally at the call of Advaita, which is a very compassionate voice. We heard how he was the leader of the devotees, the Vaishnavas in Bengal, and his house was a meeting place. There they would gather for Krishna Katha, talks about Krishna, and Krishna Kirtan. And Advaita would lead the discussions from the Bhagavad and from the Gita. And it was emphasized here that his discussions always were true to the Bhakti Siddhanta, the Bhakti perspective on the texts, the straightforward reading of the text, and the paths of yoga and jnana and karma and so forth were spoken about in relation to bhakti in such a way as that the excellence of bhakti was brought out. This is, of course, the whole Bhagavatam is about. We know from the text itself that Narad chastised Vyas for not speaking directly enough about bhakti, that people might be confused and think that the paths of yoga, jnana, karma were equal to, or perhaps more important than the path of bhakti. There's a lot of confusion about whether jnana is superior to bhakti, not amongst us, but amongst some readers, thinkers, and transcendentalists. But anyway, the Bhagavatam is clearly focused on bhakti, and so the distilled essence of that book, the Chaitanya-caritāmṛta, obviously is as well. And here the person of Advaita is introduced with this type of explanation, how he was preoccupying himself prior to the descent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we know that Advaita is a particular manifestation of the Mahavishnu and the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahavishnu is that face of the Godhead that constitutes really the personification of Narayan's desire to bestow mukti upon others, to show compassion. So he's the veritable reservoir of compassion. We talked a little bit about this and how ourselves, being drops, if you will, in the ocean of that which is Advaita Acharya, is parts and parcels. Those upon who are worthy of compassion, upon whom the Bhagavan can bestow mukti and have his desire to taste compassion fulfilled. This is our role in the Leela. That we ourselves have the capacity for compassion. Indeed, that is the quality in this world by which the Vaishnavas are most known. Paradukadukhi Kripambuddhi. They have no sorrow for themselves. They are kleshagni, even in sadhana bhakti. They're overcoming attachment. Attachment is the cause of suffering, so they're free from suffering proportionately. But suffering remains, and this is what we heard about Advaita. He was blissful, hearing and chanting about Krishna in Nam Sankirtan, discussing the Bhagavad and the Gita from the Bhakti perspective. Bodayantas parasparam, katayantas chamamnicham, tushanti cha armanti cha. He was described in terms of this verse of the Gita. And satatam kirtayantam. Itantas chadadavata, so forth. Taking great pleasure in hearing and chanting about Krishna, mutually enlightening one another is the description of the exchange between devotees and so forth. So he had no sorrow, but a sorrow welled up in his heart for others who were not taking to Krishna Bhakti. Now it's, besides the overall position of Mahavishnu as I'm speaking about him as the personification of compassion, the form of the Lord, the form in which the Lord really tastes the compassion in his Shrishti Leela. And Mahavishnu is also the person, the divinity through whom the Yuga avatars appear, and all the avatars. He is the first incarnation, the avatar. We have the Prakash and the Panchatattva that is headed by Nityananda Prabhu, the first manifestation of Krishna, that is of a different complexion and disposition, although equally Bhagawan, he has a serving attitude, and so forth, and from him there are various expansions, both in Goloka, as Mahasankarshan, and in Dwarka as well, in Mathura and Dwarka, and then in the Vaikunthas also. But then, again, with this moment of compassionate heart, then there is the manifestation of Mahavishnu. So that is now from Vaikuntha, from the Paravyom, descending into the Ekapad Vibhuti, the material existence. So in this sense, he's the first avatar. And then so many avatars appear through him. Of course, there's the three, the Purusha avatars. He's the first. Then comes the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, the Kshirodakshay Vishnu. And then the world is set up, so to speak. And then the different avatars of Vishnu come, Varaha and Shrina, and so forth. And they're all instrumental in the bestowing of compassion upon the devotees, the jivas. They keep the current of bhakti alive in the world. And in this regard, in particular, of course, or as well, I should say, but it's highlighted perhaps, he is then the divinity through whom the Yuga avatars come. And it's now just at the dawning, in the Sandhyam, between the Sandhyam means like the dawn or the noon or the dusk, that in between time, between the end of the Dwapara Yuga and the beginning of the Kali Yuga. it's the time for the Yuga Avatar. Some confusion about that is there, because as we mentioned the other day, in the Mahabharata, where there's the 1,000 names of Vishnu are given, one of the names of Vishnu is what? Who's that? Triyuga. Triyuga means 3 yugas. So it would imply that he only comes in 3 yugas, not in the Kali Yuga. And this was the confusion of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. I think we mentioned it in Jagannath Puri when he was seeking to instruct Madhuvan, informed by his brother-in-law Gopinath, he can instruct him, he's Bhagwan. Sarvabhauma replied, there is no Bhagwan appearing in Kali Yuga, therefore he's named Triyuga. Of course, there's a famous verse in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, in the mouth of Prahlad, where this name, Vishnu Triyuga, is invoked, and Chanakalo, it's mentioned that he's Triyuga because in Kali Yuga he appears in a covered way. Apparently Sarvabhauma didn't know that verse from the Bhagavatam, but Gopinath did. And it's of course an important verse for us. But the point here is that it was the time for this covered Yuga Avatar. And the time of his descent happened to correspond with the internal reasons for Krishna's descent. So this upsurge of the feelings of Krishna in pursuit of the love of Radha, to experience that from her perspective, her love for him, corresponded the ideas with the time of the Yuga Avatar. And so, therefore, here it's mentioned that Tara Sange Ananda Kori Vaishnaviragan Krishna Katha Krishna Puja Nam Sankirtan they were doing Nam Sankirtan Kintu Sarva Lokadeki Krishna Bahimuk Vishai Nimagna Lokadeki Paiduk. Still, he had some sorrow in him, Advaita, despite the blissful engagement. Loker Nishtar Hetu Korena Chintana Kemate Eshab Loker Hoibe Taram. Seeing the condition of the world, he began to lament and think of a solution. And what? Krishna Avatari Koren Bhaktira Vishtar Tobita Sakal Loker Hoibe Nishtar. So he had the idea that he needed to make Krishna, cause Krishna to descend, to distribute bhakti, and only by that then would the people be liberated. Now, this is peculiar because Krishna, as we hear from the sacred text, does not appear in every Kali Yuga, or he does, but not Krishna himself. I mean, there's a Yuga Avatar for Kali Yuga, sometimes in some texts referred to as Gaur Narayan, but this is a special time, a special Kali Yuga, in which Krishna himself is coming in the role of the Yuga Avatar, because the time of the Yuga Avatar's appearance, and it happens to be corresponding with the time in which Krishna is experiencing his internal esoteric desires and reasons for descending. So the way this seems well connected, if you will, because he didn't call for the ordinary Yuga Avatar, and for that matter, what is he doing in the world? Mahavishnu is there in his role overseeing the Srishti Leela, but what is he doing appearing on earth in human-like form? Mahavishnu doesn't have a human-like form. So, of course, the Dvaita is there to facilitate, as we heard, along with Haridas, Jagannath Mishra, Sachimata, Chandrasekhar Charja, Nityananda Prabhu, and so forth, the Guru Paribar of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the elders. First, they had to descend and be participants in Nara Leela, if there is to be a Nara Leela, or human-like Leela. Of course, Krishna's Leela is human-like. This is Krishna coming again as a devotee of himself, but it's human-like, if not more human-like. Human-like in terms of the sadhaka deya, I guess we could say. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leelas is personifying that, how to be a perfect sadhaka. Grihijana Sikshaka, Nyasi Gulanayaka. In either way, Grihe Tako, Varne Tako, Sadahari Bole Tako. As a householder or as a sannyasi, showed the example for both. Mahabharata describes him as such. Suvarna Varnahemango Varnangaschamanagati Sannyasakacchamashantu Nishtashanti Parayana. These names correspond with his household leelas in Navadvip and his sannyas leela in Jagannath Puri and other parts of India. Bhakti Vinod was who wrote Grihijana Shikshaka Nyasigulanaya. He was the perfect teacher by example as a householder and the hero, and thereby example also of the sannyasis in his sannyas lila. So it's human-like, and so he needs a father, he needs a mother, he needs elders, he needs a guru, and a param guru, and so on and so forth. So Ishwar Puri, Madhuvan Puri have been mentioned, and the way to amongst them, and he's now being further described as the leader in Navadvip, Shantipur, where he resided, within the circle of Gauda, the Gauda Mandala, the leader of the Vaishnavas there. So Advaita doesn't know that he's Mahavishnu entirely. We find that, as I said in the previous class, Gaudiyas were very astute in their understanding of Krishna, and that they understood that if Krishna was to descend, then his associates had to be with him. And of course, in due course, they found out that they were the associates, so they would move in and out of such an understanding. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna? No, he's just our hometown associate. Now he's become a big sannyasi. Still, we should go and visit him in Puri on a plea of observing Chaturmasya there, and so on and so forth. So here is Advaita, a particular form of Mahavishnu appearing, incarnating further, and knowingly or unknowingly, in the role of the Yuga Avatar, calling now for the Yuga Avatar to come, but calling not the ordinary Yuga Avatar, but Krishna himself to come. So this is a special Leela and a special advent in the Kali Yuga, where a special opportunity is bestowed. Rupa Goswami described it in his dramas. I don't know if it was Lalita Madhava or Vidagdha Madhava, I can't recall now. I think the Vidagdha Madhava. Anarpita Charim Charat Karunayabhatinukulu Samarpaitam Unatuta Rasam Sabhakti Sriyam. This verse was taken from Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami spoke it in the presence of Mahaprabhu at the request of various devotees in Puri who Mahaprabhu was introducing him to. When Rupa Goswami came to Jagannath Puri, he lived with Haridas. Mahaprabhu would go and give his darshan to Haridas every day, and when Rupa Goswami was present, he invited the other devotees, Ramananda, Swarup, and others to come with him and meet the great poet, Rupa Goswami. His name is Rupa. Rupa means form, but it means beauty also. He is, of course, Rupa Manjari in the Nitya Leela of Krishna. And here Rupa means beautiful. It is thought that Rupa Goswami, as Rupa Manjari, is an incarnation of the beauty of Radharani. And a poet par excellence. And Mahaprabhu wanted to showcase his poetry to persons like Ramananda, who wrote Jagannath Vallabha Nataka. He was a poet, a kavi. And it was Ramananda who asked, after Mahaprabhu introduced, this is Rupa Goswami. He has written two dramas. His poetry is so nice that even his penmanship is worth noting. He said it flows on the page like rows of pearls on a string. And so the learned Ramananda asked, let's hear this verse, verses that would correspond with the type of verses that needed to be there from the poetic standards of aesthetic considerations in any drama. And one of the verses, of course, is the verse glorifying the presiding deity. And Rupa Goswami began to chant, Anarpita Charim Charat, Karnayavatina Kalo, Samarpaitam, Nacholja Rasam Sabhakti Sriyam Hari, Purta Sundra Duti, Kadamba Sandipita, Sadarlaya Kandares Purto Vaha, Sachinandana. And Mahaprabhu turned to him, embarrassed, Sachinandana. That's me you're talking about. What kind of nonsense is this you're writing in your book? And with such praise, who comes in Kali Yuga? Anarpita Charim Charat. That which is anarpita, seldom given, seldom bestowed. Anarpita Charim Charat. Not for a long, long time. Not since the previous time, within time, when this Leela manifested in the world. Anarpita Charim Charat Karnayavatina Kalo. Descending in the Kali Yuga. Anarpita Charim Charat Karnayavatina Kalo Samarpaitam. And giving what's not being bestowed, he bestowed in a big way. Samarpaitam Unato Surasam Sabhakti Sriyam. That those precious treasure of rasa, the brightest jewel of rasa, it was his own pursuit, his own bhakti sriyam, descended to this. So this is a very special benediction. Now this is important because it's one of the reasons we can invoke to make the case with regard to the philosophical point that bhakti is not inherent in the jiva. Bhakti is bestowed. This is a particular type of bhakti that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is bestowing on the world. Basically, he's bestowing Braj Bhakti, and in the context of that, Unato Ujvala. Ujvala means Madhurya Rasa. Unata Ujvala. It's a special kind of Madhurya Rasa. In Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he explains two types of Kamanuga Bhakti, or Madhurya Rasa. The type in which one desires the union directly with Krishna, and the one in which one desires to connect with the bhava of one who is a leading lady. And of course the Jiva Goswami comments that the latter is more desirable. This is, and the full face of that, there are different expressions of that, but the full face of that is the Manjari Bhava, the Bhava of Bhakti. And some modern devotees have reasoned, his follower who's writing focuses on the Prayojan, so we feel him to be the Prayojan Tattvacharya. So the goal, the highest ideal of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that's what he's writing about, and he's very clearly writing this Manjari Bhava is the highest ideal of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. This is how the jivas can come as close to tasting what Mahaprabhu himself, Krishna himself, came to taste. It's slightly different, but he won't taste the Bhava of Radha. He may taste that not by becoming Radha as he was successful in doing, but following in the wake of the particular kind of Madhurya Ramananda Samvad. Ramananda Samvad is about what is the sadhya, what is the goal, and sadhana. What's the way to attain it? And so there's a gradation that he goes through of goals and the corresponding methods, and he comes to the conclusion that this way of the Sakis, and of course in mentioning the Sakis, he says something about them. Saki is a general word, it means a female friend here. So it could be looked at in different ways. There are different types of Saki Bhav, different types of Sakis. Even the Priyanarma Sakas, the boyfriends of Krishna, who are involved in his romantic affairs, assisting him, their love is referred to as Rupa Goswami as Saki Bhav. But he describes the Saki Bhav in particular in one verse, where he says what? These Sakis, they never desire to have direct union with Krishna. Some Sakis, like Alita, Vishaka, they're Param Prishta Sakis, or their assistants, Priya Sakis. They have desire for union with Krishna. They know Krishna takes pleasure in that. Radha has desire to see them have union with Krishna also. So at times they have union with Krishna. They're not Sambhog Icha. That's not their desire. They're the friends of Radha. These are other types of Gopi Saki. She has different types of friends. They want to assist her, but there are occasions when they will have direct union with Krishna, according to his desire, according to her desire, and so forth. But the Manjaris, they'll never do that. Even Radha says, you should, if Krishna approaches you, they never allow that. The implication, of course, is that in their position, they're tasting everything that Radha is tasting, which is more than anyone else can taste by direct union with Krishna. Therefore, their position is already superior to any other type of, any other attempt to, or any other union with Krishna, direct union with Krishna. So anyway, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has said something. We should be clear on this. I've said before, Nityananda Prabhu is broadcasting this, and more than anyone else, putting attention on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so there's a byproduct of that. Some people will find themselves attached. Some great devotees have been attached to Nityananda Prabhu, and so his Sakya Bhav is also flowing in a Gaudiya Sampradaya. But philosophically, theologically speaking, this is the highest gift of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He gives the gift of Braj Bhakti. But when it says Unata Ujjvala, Ujjvala means Madhurasa. Rupa Goswami's book is called the sequel to Gaudiya to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjvala Nilmani. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami goes through all 5 aesthetic forms of aesthetic rapture: Shantaras, Dasiras, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. And the section on Madhurya is perhaps the smallest. There he's writing in a general way from Tatastha Vichara, stepping back from it and writing from a neutral position. But in the sequel, Ujjvala Nilmani, it's all about Madhurya Rasa and a little bit about Sakya Rasa. First 2 chapters. As much as the Sakya Rasa is involved in Madhurya Rasa, that's also included in Ujjvala Nilmani. So the word Ujjvala Nilmani, Nil means blue and money means gem. So that's it, like that. It's about the gem, the blue gem of Madhurya Rasa. That's Krishna. Here the words are in the verse of Rupa Goswami: Unata Ujjvala. Unata Ujjvala. So the highest, brightest jewel of Madhurya Rasa. And so the point here is that this is a special benediction. And if bhakti is inherent within every jiva, and therefore you have Nrsimha Bhakti and you have Ram Bhakti and somebody has this bhakti and that bhakti, and it's inherent, some people have Dasya and Vatsa, then who's going to get the benediction? Only those who have it inherent within them. Hmm? And how do you give something that's already there? Right? And so it's really a special time. Hmm? Sometimes it's thought, jivas have some capacity for dasya bhakti within them. We say they have the capacity to love. We don't say bhakti is inherent, but they have the capacity to love. Hmm? Their source, as we're hearing, is the Mahavishnu. Hmm? Mahavishnu wants to bestow bhakti. That means dasya bhakti, Vaikuntha, dasya shanta bhakti. Dasya bhakti really wants to bestow. Hmm? Here Mahaprabhu Krishna's coming in the place of the Yuga Avatar and opening the doors not to Vaikuntha. We say that Narayan is compassion. He has a moment of compassion. He wants to bestow the mukti. There's no one to bestow it on. Apparently Krishna has a similar moment, and it's described in Caitanya-caritāmṛta, that his idea is, there's that whole world there, and in that whole world we find people worship me. They probably think me to be the 8th avatar of Vishnu or something, and they worship me for different reasons. They worship me to get things, they worship me to get liberation, they worship me in awe and reverence. And high end of that is to worship me in awe and reverence, but it just doesn't do anything for me. It's not what I'm about. That's for my majestic form of Narayan and Vaikuntha, but it just doesn't do anything for me. I like it when my devotees say, "Hey, buddy, who do you think you are? I can defeat you in wrestling." I like it when my mother chastises me and says, "Why are you acting like this, behaving like this?" All the neighbors are complaining. And when my lover won't let me into the forest bower, all these types of behavior, I find this to be more pleasing than the Vedas recited perfectly. This type of talk I like. "Hey buddy, who do you think you are? I can defeat you." This I find very, very charming. As they say, there's much majesty or Aishvarya in Vrindavan and throughout the Bhagavatam. But if properly understood, the Aishvarya of the Bhagavatam is all there to showcase the Madhurya. It's all there for this purpose. And that is what we can see. Caitanya-caritāmṛta is the distilled essence of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is about this love of Vrindavan, and here is Krishna in Vrindavan and Caitanya-caritāmṛta saying, "I'd like to give this to people, but no, they don't have any interest in me. I should go. I should bring my Leela to the world and showcase this kind of love of my friends, of my parents, of my romantic counterparts, and bestow the opportunity for people of the world to associate with me in this way." So this is something like Mahavishnu's desire to be compassionate and bestow mukti. It has some place in Krishna Lila as well. But this is a very special occasion. This is the private life of Krishna, right? So he comes, and then of course he comes, and in his human-like Lila he gets thrown off balance in terms of his desire to bestow this on others, because the nature of Leela is such that it's so beautifully played out in human life that in a Nara Leela, the human-like Leela, Krishna gets this picture of Radha's love for him that causes him to take like a double take, and then desire to taste that love from her vantage point himself. And so another lila is required to taste that, and in the context of that, fulfill his initial ambition to bestow this upon everybody. Because in Krishna Lila, he doesn't show how to do it. He kind of does in the Bhagavad Gita. Says a few things about it, talks about it, says they do kirtan, offer me a fruit, a flower, a leaf, always think of me, ananischintayanto mam, pattam pushpam palam toyam, satatam kirtayanto mam. But in the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes and teaches how. By example. Many times we say, example speaks louder than precept. So in a very loud way, he shows the way. This is his Leela as a sadhaka. So you can see, Krishna really wanted to bestow this opportunity upon others. But his own Nara Leela got confused him, so to speak. Seeing the measure of Radha's love, and I'm Rasaraj, I came to bestow this. Wait a minute. And I'm indebted to this type of love from the Gopikas, and this I should give to the world. In particular, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's a pointer. Excuse me, there. My hand on the microphone. It's a special benediction, a special gift. A gift. So it's not something we already have, and anyone can get it, right? Most unqualified. So it's some good reasoning I offer you as to, in support of this point, that the bhakti rasa, the jiva, is not something that's part of its constitution. Its constitution is such that if the opportunity for bhakti rasa is bestowed, it can take advantage of it. Not like the Maya Shakti. It can take advantage of that. It has the capacity to love Samananda. So a special gift, and Advaita is part of this in a big way. The Mahavishnu gets a special role now. Again, Mahavishnu is the form of Narayan, through which he fulfills his desire to bestow mukti. And what is Advaita then? That Mahavishnu taking a form, a human-like form, in which he can be part of bestowing Unata Ujjvala Rasa, the mellows of Braj, and the highest mellows of Braj. So for this, Krishna has to come. No avatar of Krishna can give this, obviously. Krishna's, one of his qualities is prema madhurya, that he's surrounded by devotees endowed with extraordinary prema, of a sweet type, not of an Aishvarya type, like you find in Vaikuntha. So no other avatar has this quality. It said even Narayan doesn't have this quality. Krishna has 4 qualities, madhurya qualities: Venu madhurya, Lila madhurya, Rupa madhurya, and prema madhurya. Sweet flute. Narayan doesn't play the flute. Sweet form means human-like form. Narayan has a form, majestic form. Leela Madhurya, sweet Leelas, very charming, right? Compared to Narayan's Leelas, right? In all of his avatars, there's no comparison. Therefore, the Krishna Leelas captivates the whole of India. Showcased in the Bhagavatam. Therefore, the Bhagavatam is the most popular of all the Puranas. There's no comparison. Translated in, there's 80 different Sanskrit commentaries on the Bhagavatam. Scholars in the spiritual tradition recognize it. You can't find probably one Sanskrit commentary on the Brahmanda Purana, or the Kurma Purana, this Purana, Kalki Purana, or that Purana. And translated now into many languages, the Bhagavatam around the world. I think it first appeared in French, and then in German, and in English, and so many, thanks to my Guru Maharaj and his mission, Paribara Bhakti Vinod, so many languages. But the whole of India captivated by the stories of Krishna. Only thing to compare it with is their captivation with Ram like Leela, human-like Leela also. Ramchandra Ram, Dasarati Ram, Ramayana. So charming Leelas, and so Leela Madhurya and Prema Madhurya. Surrounded by devotees endowed with a special kind of love. And so no other avatar has this, not even Narayan, so they cannot bestow it. So Krishna must come. So Advaita, like I said, he's well connected. He's calling for the Yuga avatar, but he's calling for Krishna to come personally. Yes, it's Kali Yuga, so we need a special power, but I mean, every Kali Yuga is there. Advaita would seem powerful enough to do it. Mahavishnu can do it. But no, he's calling Krishna. And so he understands. He knows or he doesn't know. He doesn't know by Yoga Maya. Otherwise he knows. This is a special Leela, and I'm part of it. So Krishna, avatarite acharya pratigna koriya, Krishna puja kore tulasi, ganga jal diya. And this was his method. How in the heck is he going to call Krishna? This is the question. For the Narayan, for the Vaikuntha expansions to make descent, this is not a big thing. But he's going to call Krishna to come personally. And he already just came. In the Dwapara Yuga, he came, he descended. You're going to call him back? I mean, he doesn't come but once in the day of Brahma. He's going to come again? How are you going to get him back? What kind of method will you use? How difficult will that be? The answer is, it's very easy. Patram pushpam palamatoyam yome bhakti prayachati karaham bhakti paritamashnaami prayatatmantam. Krishna avatarite acharya pratigna koriya. Krishna puja kori tulasi ganga jal diya. With tulsi leaves and ganga jal. As described in Bhagavad Gita. So we'll follow up with a discussion of this method. Simple method for a very high thing. To bring Krishna and for him to bestow the highest possibility. It's very easy. That's the point. Very easy. We think it would be very difficult. But Gita says, with a flower, a leaf, water, worships me, that devotee, pure in character, in mind, and body, I'm purchased by that. So we'll go into that in the next discussion. What is the time? 7:22. Any question?
All these Vishnus and Krishna, Balaram, it's described in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta as part of the Sanatana Shiksha.
Chatuvyuha, all the expansions in Vaikuntha and Goloka and so forth, are described in the Adi Leela in great detail there, in greater detail in the 5th chapter, where this is the subject. The subject is the Prakash, of which Nityananda Ram is the prime example. And so then he expands as Mul Sankarshan, Lila, in Mathura and Dwarka. Then he expands again, it's described, for in Vaikuntha. And then that Sankarshan Vaikuntha manifests as Mahavishnu, and the Pradyumna and Niruddha, other members come as the other two Vishnus. It's all described there in detail. It's all about the Paravyom. And then something about also the beginning of Avatar Tattva as well, because the Vishnu, the Purusha Avatar is Mahavishnu, Kshirakshai, Vishnu. These are all also identified with the Chaturvyuha, but their manifestations in this world. So that's described in detail. Otherwise, it's listed, so to speak, in the Sanatana Siksha. Those type of avatars are mentioned, but not explained in detail. Does that help?
Yeah. The actual question is, where else are these all these Vishnus described? Like on what does Krishna's Kaviraj Swami base this description? Like, why are we the only ones who know that first there's Krishna, then Balaram, and then
No, the Chaturvyuha is quite well represented in Hinduism. I'm not sure what other text it's found, but it's the Vyuha, the Vishnu, the three Vishnus, and so forth. But it not so much about Golok, but about Vaikuntha, Saul and Ramanuja Sampradaya, Madhva Sampradaya, all these things. The Chaturvyuha's Vyuha concept is quite well known, these expansions. And so that you can find in their literature, and I'm not sure whether maybe Vishnu Purana, Padma Purana, which are the main books for Ramanuja Sampradaya. There is a temple, there's a scholar who wrote a book about a temple in India in which the Bhagavad is kind of stone etched in the temple. The temple is made like Vaikuntha. There's quite an elaboration in that book. I forget the name of it now. On the Chaturvyuha, so it's not Gaudiya Sampradaya. It's in South India. And that's based on Bhagavatam. So also it's there in Bhagavatam. The Vishnu expansions. Now what you have specialty of the Gaudiyas is Goloka. And so you have Krishna, Balaram, and Vrindavan, then Vasudeva and Sankarshan in Mathura and Dwarka, Pradyumna, Niruddha, Sandhya, and so. But the Vyuha concept is pervasive in Hindu Bhakti.
Another confusing point is that the Purusha avatars are all called Mahavishnu, or kind of without distinction, because as far as I remember or understand, Kshirakshai Vishnu is the one who appears as the various
avatars. Yeah, I mean, they come from one to the other. So Mahavishnu is the original avatar. Through him comes the Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Through him comes the Kshirakshai Vishnu. Through him comes the different avatars.
How we should understand that in talking about it in a sort of black and white way, but it feels like there are many things in our practice.
Right. So it's not that everything you do in private you'll do in public, but that in the life that you're cultivating privately is cultivated in the public as well. It's like Superman and Clark Kent. I mean, he can't be Superman everywhere, but he is. Every now and then maybe he does something, and has to give some other explanation of why it happened or something. I don't know. I'm not much of a follower of Superman, but I do know from being a kid that he used to change in the phone booth and so on. So I guess he was always Superman. Although he couldn't act like Superman when he in ordinary circumstances, he had to go and hide and change his dress, but still he was aware of what was going on. The lives weren't disconnected. In other words, the idea is I can't be cultivating one thing in the public eye, material sense enjoyment, and cultivating bhakti and renunciation in my private life and expected the cultivation of the latter to be fruitful. So there's a way in which to be a devotee in the public. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you go up to everybody and say, Hare Krishna, especially in Western culture, but that you be a perfect gentleman, a perfect gentle woman. How do they say? Lady and gentleman. Perfect lady, perfect gentleman was Prabhupada's idea. Compassionate in heart. Act in such a way that people will meet you and want to know what you're about. Invite them home, cook for them, offer to the deity, and they'll never want to leave. That's the idea. This is what Prabhupada recommended, how his householders should conduct themselves in public. So you're a devotee in private life and a devotee in public life, but it takes different shapes. To some extent. Does that help? Yeah. All right. We'll stop there. Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta ki jai. Shri Krishna Balaram ji ki jai. Guru Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki jai. Ekadasi Bhatta ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.